Ho, ho, ho! It's almost Christmas time, and it's time to debunk some Christmas tree myths. What's the best way to keep them hydrated? Should you add diapers to the tree stand? Are artificial trees better for the environment? Or do the artificial trees contain a lot of lead? What about trees in pots? That seems like a good idea. Can you reuse those, and can you plant them out in the garden? And how should you cut the bottom of a real tree so it soaks up lots of water? These and many more questions will be answered in this program. Myth number one, keep trees fresh with home remedies. Lots of additives have been suggested to keep your tree fresh, including commercial tree preservatives, molasses, sugar, bleach, soft drinks, aspirin, honey, ketchup, corn syrup, and fertilizer. None of these works better than plain water. In fact, several, including commercial products, increase the loss of needles. If you hear about another home remedy not listed here, it probably does not work. Myth number two, hydrogels keep trees hydrated. Hydrogels are also referred to as hydrogel crystals, water jelly crystals, root watering crystals, water retention granules, and water-absorbing polymers. The material inside a baby diaper is a hydrogel, and many sources suggest using this material to keep plants watered. It doesn't work for Christmas trees or other plants. It has no place in the garden, in a plant pot, or in a tree stand. Myth number three, anti-transpirants prevent water loss. Anti-transpirants are commercial products that are sprayed on trees to prevent water loss through the needles. They do clog the stomata for a very short period of time, which reduces some water loss, but the effect is short-lived. Stomata in the needles open and close as needed and quickly overcome the spray. Anti-transpirants don't work. Myth number four, treat them like cut flowers. Cut flowers are kept fresh by adding a preservative to the water. Why is this not used for Christmas trees? Cut flowers quickly produce a substance called callose, a carbohydrate that plugs up the end of the stem. An acidic preservative added to the water keeps callose from sealing off the xylem. Christmas trees and other woody plants do not produce callose, and the xylem in trees stays open much longer. A preservative will not help. According to Dr. Warner, Associate Professor of Forestry at the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, evergreens do excrete resin that naturally seals the cut after a week and a half, so very little water is absorbed after that point. That explains why trees stop drinking water after about a week. Myth number five, use a diagonal cut on the trunk. Most people cut the end of the tree with a perpendicular cut, but it is claimed that a diagonal cut allows the tree to absorb more water. This seems to make sense. A diagonal cut exposes more of the trunk, which in turn should absorb more water. Unfortunately, this logic is false. Think of the xylem as a bunch of vertical straws running up the trunk. Can you suck up more liquid through a straw with a diagonal cut or a perpendicular cut? Both are the same, since the limiting factor is the diameter of the straw, not the shape of the opening. The other issue with a diagonal cut is that the upper section will be exposed above the waterline sooner, since it is higher up in the tree stand. Once exposed, it stops pulling up water for the tree. Stick with a perpendicular cut. The cut should be made within 12 hours of setting up the tree. Cut off at least 1/4 inch to ensure fresh xylem is exposed. Myth number 6, remove some of the bark. To improve water absorption, some people suggest stripping the bark off the lower 6 inches. This exposes more cambium layer, which helps absorb water, or at least that is the claim that is made. The bark is also cut off to fit the tree in the tree stand. Do not cut any of the bark off. If you don't cut deep enough to reach the xylem, no water is absorbed from the side. And if you do cut deep enough, you will damage the xylem. Myth number 7, potted Christmas trees are better. Instead of killing a live tree, why not use a potted one? After Christmas, you can then plant it in the garden. The problem is that evergreens need a cool period during the winter to grow properly the following spring, and they don't like to come into your warm home for 6 weeks. The warm temperatures will cause the tree to grow, and when you take it outside after Christmas, the new growth will be damaged by the cold. If you're willing to have the tree in your home for 2 weeks or less, and you have a place to plant it in spring, buying a potted Christmas tree is a good option. Most gardens are not big enough to accommodate a new large evergreen each year. An alternative is to have a company grow it for you and bring it back each year, but that adds to the environmental footprint. Is this really any more eco-friendly than using a live tree? Probably not. And the service probably costs as much as a new tree. Myth number 8, don't kill a live tree. A lot of people use an artificial tree because they don't want to kill a live tree. It is important to remember that Christmas trees are a farmed crop. They are grown specifically for harvesting. What happens when a tree is harvested? Most tree farms will plant more seedlings for future harvests. You are not killing a tree. You are providing space for a new baby tree to grow. A forest is an ecosystem where trees are continually dying and being replaced with new trees. Myth number 9, real trees aggravate allergies. It is common to hear about allergies to Christmas trees, but according to the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences and the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, the reality is that few people have such allergies. Evergreens don't produce pollen in winter, and pine pollen is not a known allergen. It is much more likely for people to have allergic reactions to the mold and dust found on reused fake trees than to react to real trees. Myth number 10, real Christmas trees end up in landfills. This certainly does happen, but many localities have some type of recycling program. Even without one, trees can simply be left in woods or fields to decompose on their own. There is no excuse for them to end up in a landfill. Years ago, it was customary to have a big tree burning event after Christmas. This is great fun, but terrible for the environment since it releases CO2 into the air. Most real Christmas trees are recycled. Myth number 11, Christmas trees are a fire hazard. There is a concern about real trees causing a house fire, and each year we see examples of this on the news. The reality is that this is a very rare occurrence. The National Fire Protection Association reports that only 0.001% of real Christmas trees cause a fire. Artificial Christmas trees have fire retardants added to the plastic used to make them. For this reason, they are perceived to provide a safer option, but 28% of home fires involving a Christmas tree are due to fake ones. To reduce the likelihood of a fire with either kind of tree, keep trees away from heating vents and fireplaces, keep them hydrated, and turn off lights at night. Myth number 12. Real Christmas trees are cut down from forests. There are nearly 15,000 Christmas tree farms in the US and Canada, growing almost 500,000 trees. Only about 2% of real Christmas trees are harvested from natural locations, and many of them come from areas that need to be thinned to control forest fires. Myth number 13. Artificial Christmas trees contain lead. Most artificial trees are made from PVC plastic, and manufacturers add lead to make the plastic flexible. There are numerous warnings on the net about the dangers of lead in these trees. Is this a concern? California thinks so. Any PVC that contains lead has to be labeled with a special warning. Handling this product exposes you to lead, a chemical known to the state of California to cause cancer and birth defects or other reproductive harm. This is part of the crazy situation in California that requires labeling of anything that might be harmful. Other products made from the same plastic include computer power cables, phone cables, some cell phone cases, binders, raincoats, boots, garden hoses, inflatable pool toys, soft plastic toys, Christmas lights, and the list goes on. Lead does pose a health risk, but the reality is that many things in our daily lives also expose us to the same level of lead. Nobody stops using power cables because of the risk, even though they are used for 12 months of the year. We have not banned the use of inflatable pool toys, even though children are at a higher risk than adults. In recent years, companies have started finding lead replacements, and new trees will have less of an issue than older ones. Real Christmas trees don't have lead issues until you add the lights. The wire used in them contains lead. Myth number 14. Real trees are loaded with pesticides. Growing trees is like any other agricultural crop, and pesticides are used when required. Evergreens are fairly pest-free, and farmers don't use pesticides if they don't need them because they cost a lot of money. IPM procedures for evergreen farms focus mostly on non-chemical controls. There is no need to spray them immediately before harvest, so by the time you get them, the risk from any pesticide is very small. The spinach you buy probably has higher levels of pesticides, but it is not a health risk. This is a red herring promoted by companies trying to sell fake trees. Myth number 15. Fake Christmas trees are more sustainable. This is an ongoing debate, but most sources have concluded that a real tree is more sustainable than an artificial one. One study from Canada found that using a real tree produced half as much CO2 as using an artificial tree. And that study assumed that the artificial tree was burned after Christmas. If that tree is not burned and is just recycled, maybe chipped up for wood, or just left in a field to rot on its own, it actually produces even less CO2. A Swedish study looking at this found that a real tree is 5 times better for the environment than an artificial one. One of the reasons for this difference is that we don't keep artificial trees long enough. You have to keep them and use them each year for 20 years before they start matching the environmental impact of a real tree. And most of us don't keep them that long. Now, the distance you drive to get your real tree is also important. So try to drive as short distance as possible when you're buying your tree. Here are some pros for a real Christmas tree. It absorbs CO2 and sequesters carbon while it's growing. It's 100% recyclable. They're generally grown with no-till, which means there's an accumulation of carbon in the soil. And they're usually grown on land that is not suitable for other crops. Shorter transportation from local sources compares to the fake trees, which are mostly imported from China. Tree farms provide refuge for wildlife. An acre of Christmas trees produces enough daily oxygen for 18 people. Real trees also have some cons. Fertilizers and pesticides are used in growing them. Recycling them increases the carbon footprint. They need to be replaced every year. Now, what about the pros for artificial trees? Well, the main one is that they can be used for many years, although the average is only between 6 and 9 years. There are also cons for an artificial tree. Long transportation routes, usually between China and wherever you live. They're mostly made from PVC plastic, which contains some lead, phthalates, and other VOCs. And once they're discarded, they decompose very slowly in landfill. Now you have a choice to make. Which kind of tree are you going to use? And the second choice you have to make is, what kind of Christmas present are you going to send me this year? I hope it's a nice one. One of the things I've found out is that it's very difficult for the average person to figure out which item is more sustainable because we don't think of all of the inputs and complications in making products. Sometimes the things we think are good for the environment actually aren't. Thank you very much for your support. If you'd like to connect directly with me, the best way is through my Facebook group, Garden Fundamentals. We'll answer all of your questions there. I also have a blog called Garden Myths, where I've debunked over 2,000 different myths. I'll put links to all of these in the description below. Happy gardening.